Welcome to Simple Answers with Dr. Z, a question and answer podcast produced by New Beginnings Assembly of God to help bring clarity and grow your relationship with Christ. If you have a question that you would like to have discussed by Dr. Stephen Zemanek and the team, please submit it to simpleanswerswithdrz@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and we hope this podcast blesses you.
Welcome into Simple Answers with Dr. Z. I am Travis Green. I am the youth pastor at New Beginnings Assembly of God. This is a New Beginnings Assembly of God production, and we have New Beginnings Assembly of God pastor, Dr. Z himself, Stephen Zemanek.
Hello.
And then we have the outsider. It is Randy Green.
That guy.
He is the one that we push further and further off the stage. Guys, before we get this podcast started, I want to make sure is my collar, everything's good? Because as you can tell, this is a very authentic podcast because the last podcast, my collar was tucked in. So go back and laugh at that when you go back and watch the last episode. And no one told me. So very, very authentic. We make sure that we keep it as real as possible.
It's a team effort.
Yes,
it's a team effort.
But we have a very simple concept here. Not only simple answers, a simple concept. You ask the questions, we answer them. You can send them two different ways. One, simpleanswerswithdrz@gmail.com or tinyurl.com/simpleanswerswithdrz. That's how you get an anonymous question on the show. And we do have an anonymous question. Not to start, but we do have an anonymous question.
All right.
Our second question today is from Anonymous. But our first question we'll kick off is from Brittany. Brittany, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, if you are still watching. Brittany asks, I am dating someone who has invited me to church. I didn't grow up in church, but I'm intrigued and feel a connection when I go. However, I feel hypocritical too, because while I feel a connection when I leave church and am with my friends, I still cuss, drink, and partake in premarital sex with my boyfriend. Am I a hypocrite? How should I change these areas in my life? Dr. Z, I'm going to go ahead and kick that one over to you. Such a simple question, and now you give us a simple answer.
And Brittany, I'm proud of you for being honest about this. And that means you're not a hypocrite. I'm not condoning everything you're doing, but I am telling you you're not a hypocrite. A hypocrite, the Greek term, is used for actors. You're pretending to be something that you're not. And so if you were going to church and enjoying that sense of fellowship that church is designed to give you, and then you're pretending like you don't have any issues in your life, that you're better than everybody who isn't going to church, then you're being a hypocrite. You're being unauthentic. And one of the, to me, greatest aspects of being a follower of Jesus is that Jesus calls us primarily to be authentic, not perfect. Now, he does say, be perfect just as I am perfect. But he calls us to be authentic. You are who you are. And here's the neat thing about God. God already knew all of the issues that you're having, all of the choices that you're making, before he began to draw you to him using that church family to do it. I would give you a couple of a little bit of fatherly advice, a little bit of pastoral advice, even though I'm not your pastor. Sex is great. It is designed to be great, and it's great, and that's why we do it. However, sex is also designed to bring a real sense of bonding, a real sense of connection to somebody. And I'm not in any way putting you or your boyfriend's relationship in any kind of trouble. But if, for whatever reason, this doesn't end up being your forever man, you're making a connection with somebody that will go with you for the rest of your life. Before Jesus saved me, I lived that same kind of lifestyle. And so I'm married now 35 years this month. And there's still some baggage that I have on occasion because of the connections that I made. It's not just physical. I mean, those are easy to move on from. But that emotional connection, and dare I say spiritual almost connection that you make with somebody when you give yourself so intimately to them is something that's part of your life forever. And so I would encourage you The reason that you're feeling bad is called conviction. The Lord is trying to tell you there's a better way to live. And as a dad and as a pastor, I would encourage you to follow that. Because while you want to live authentically, you always want to move more and more into what He's called you to live. You're going to find more joy, more peace, and more purpose as you begin to do those sorts of things.
And I want to jump in real quick. Thank you for saying the part about, no, you're not a hypocrite. And let me explain why, not that he didn't explain why. Let me explain why by taking you into the Bible. Because after all, we're a faith-based
might as well
podcast.
use the Bible. That's kind of a cool book.
Bestseller.
I own one.
One? I own multiple.
Hypocrite.
That is a hypocrite.
New best friend.
Let me rate it back in here. No, let me take you into the Bible. There's a man that God said it was a man after His own heart, who, in my opinion, is probably one of the best characters in the Bible. His name's David. You can find him.
Dave.
Yeah. That's back in episode 2 or 3, one of those. But throughout the Old Testament, you see Dave making multiple mistakes, including premarital sex, but not only premarital sex, also sex
Fornication.
fornication,
adultery.
Adultery, and it was a thing that.
And then a contract killing. Don't forget that.
Yes, and it's something that haunted him for the rest of his life. And so, no, you're not a hypocrite. I want to go back to that point, because this is a man that was called a man after God's own heart, and he lived an authentic. Go back to that life, and authentic meaning. It was this. It was an authentic roller coaster. It is quite literally, guys, why I love reading stories about David, because it reminds me so much of life in general. You read David's life throughout his whole life, and you read not only in the Bible, but you read other people have written about David. And man, there are some interesting things in that man's life. His life was a real life roller coaster. And there were times, read it throughout the Psalms, that he said, God, oh God, I love you. And he sang these praises, right? But then there were those times that he said, God, oh God, where are you? Right? And there were times that he had what you're feeling, I think, maybe I'm getting the right vibe, right? I think that's probably how she's feeling as she's writing this question. Like, I love God, but I'm also this messed up person.
I'm lost.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's why, my two favorites are David and then Paul. Because Paul was, he was authentic. But, before he was a Christian, he was a persecutor. And even though he was religious because of his, Jewish beliefs, he did persecute Christians. And, but anyway, it does sound like you are trying to find something, and that you are not a hypocrite, but, you're trying to find your way. And it's so important, as Pastor said, that you do have that conviction, because if you didn't, then it would be something you would worry about. But, because of your, authenticity, I think that's, I know I said it right this time. I won't try it 2 times in a row. But
he's growing up right before our eyes.
I remember when he was just...
But it's someday, I really believe, and I'm going to be praying for you, that you will seek the Lord, and that you will make Him your personal Savior.
Yeah, it's Brittany, continue on the right path. You're on the right path. It's right there in front of you. Continue to reach out. if you were a hypocrite, you wouldn't have sent us holy people an email. No. If you were a hypocrite, you wouldn't be asking those questions, right?
Yeah, because most hypocrites don't ask if they're a hypocrite.
Yeah.
Because they've deceived themselves as much as they're trying to deceive everybody
They call
else.
everybody else hypocrite.
Yeah.
Well, Brady, I don't know if we're going to be able to top that question, but our next one is from an anonymous questioner. So we will take a break, come back with Simple Answers with Dr. Z. I'm Travis Green. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Simple Answers with Dr. Z, a podcast produced by New Beginnings Assembly of God in Maryland Heights, Missouri. If you have a question that you would like to have discussed by Dr. Stephen Zemanek and the team, please submit it to simpleanswerswithdrz@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. And now, here's Pastor Steve.
Welcome back to Simple Answers with Dr. Z. Great question by Brittany to start, but guys, finally, after an episode off, 2 episodes off,
I think so, yeah.
Anonymous has made a reappearance.
Welcome home.
Are you guys ready
We
for
have to say
Anonymous?
they're back because we don't know.
That's right.
Anonymous asked, if Israel and Jews are stated as God's chosen people, then help explain to me how Christians believe that they can make it to heaven. Also, I'm going to throw this one in there because I think it kind of ties in, and we can kind of just, in the last 10 minutes that we have here, kind of divvy up both of these questions. Andy also asked, if God is real, why are there so many denominations? Shouldn't we all be one church? So I think those kind of go hand in hand, but let's attack the first one from Anonymous, where Anonymous asked, if Israel and Jews are stated as God's chosen people, then help explain to me how Christians believe that they can make it to heaven.
I'm assuming that they make it to heaven as Christians make it to heaven?
Yes, Christians.
Mr. or Mrs. Anonymous. Brilliant question. It's one that theologians have dealt with for years, and it's also one that theologians have come to consensus on for years. When Paul does the best job of this, I'm not trying to give him extra kudos, but he did
Paul's
the best
been
job. Paul's all over the place. Jesus is a Hebrew, was Jew. We are grafted into the Jewish family. This was the issue they had at the great first General Council of the Assemblies of God there in the book of Acts. Was it 14 or 15, that chapter, where all the Gentiles were getting saved and they were beginning to outnumber the Jewish believers, and there were issues over different ways of worshiping, different ways of living, and they had the same issues. How can you call yourself a Christian if you're not a Jew? And so they came to the consensus that because we're grafted into, we are part of that lineage. And it goes all the way back to Genesis chapter 12, where Abraham, who was not a Jew, he was just a regular stinking Gentile like the rest of us, until God chose him and made a great nation out of him. He's literally the very first Jewish person. Didn't exist before him. And we, when we are saved, are just like that. We are grafted into Abraham's lineage, Christ's lineage. And the reason we make it to heaven is not because we follow particular laws, but because we follow the lawgiver, which is Jesus Christ.
That's right. Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
But
I'm going home.
Yeah, we're done. We might as well just shut it down. That is, it's going to be hard to follow that. But
That's why I gave it to you.
Yeah, I'll try. But no, really, it is. Following him does make us, grafted in. It's perfect, just like an adoption. Yes. When somebody is adopted, I'll say my oldest son is adopted. I adopted him. His mom is his mother, but I am his father because I adopted him, and I can honestly say that I love him as much as I do Travis and my other son, Zach.
Probably not.
He's going to probably cry to me later and say, "You told me that I was your favorite."
Yeah, I mean,
but that was just
lying.
He told all the kids they were the favorite.
Yeah, I always do that. But, it's when I really want something, and I need money right now, and I got to live with it coming up here soon. So, but anyway, it's like an adoption. And, whenever you adopt that person, they take on your name, and they really do start to take on your personality because you're teaching them. And I watch so many things in my oldest boy that he does like me, you know, and he knows the way I taught him. And why? Because he was, as
Because you had
Pastor
that
said,
belt in your hand.
crafty. Oh, let's not get, this is being recorded. We don't want, you know, family service to come. But no, it was, he was grafted into me. He's a green, and, you know, he is my son. And that's the best way I can look at it and how I feel about him. And that makes me, with my relationship with Christ, that much better. And you know, not that Jews aren't his chosen people, but they are for a reason, because, you know, they followed him. And if you go to Israel today and you see they are still true to him, but they have rejected their Messiah.
We'll tie in Andy's question on the back end. Andy, because I didn't want to take Anonymous's, you know, their spotlight. Andy asked, if God is real, why are there so many denominations? Shouldn't we all be one church? Again, it doesn't completely tie into the last one, but, you know.
The question needs to be rephrased differently, but as a statement. The reason there are so many denominations is because there is a God. We watch through church history, there is the human element and the divine element, where we all started out not as Catholic. They were not the first. I know they want to be, and I'm not being mean. They just weren't the first.
Well, if you're Catholic, sorry, you won't want to watch anymore.
Yeah, just send me more emails. But we moved into what was known as the Catholic Church, and it was the church. There was very small samplings of other options that you had. And the human element, if you look at it from the human side, is they couldn't get along, so we split off into everything that we have today. But then when you look at it from the divine side, God created all of us with different personalities. Some of us are loud. We like loud music. We like loud preaching. We like loud people. And so we have Pentecostal charismatic churches.
Why'd you look at me when you said loud people?
Just the Lord led me. Others of us like structure. We like a very rigid way of doing things, and we get that in a Lutheran or a Methodist or a Catholic worship service. And what God is doing is saying, I know that all of my kids are different. They all have different personalities, but they all want to worship me. So why should they all go to one church where only 1/10 of them like that church style? So we have all of these different avenues to worship God. And so to me, the fact there are so many denominations is proof of a loving God who wants to respect the way he created us and allow us to worship him with people and in a way that matches our personality.
Well, I thought us crazy tongue-talking Pentecost were the first, because after all, you know.
Well, we are. We're the best.
Well, New Beginnings Assembly of God, in particular, is the best.
I'm too humble to say it.
Well, I need to throw my church at no.
Don't worry. I got the 20 that you left on the table. No, but I think it goes back to the point of what you said with the so many different types of people. All you have to do is walk into New Beginnings Assembly of God and realize that there are...
We have one of each, guys.
There are different types of people all serving one purpose. It goes back to what you said about we are all serving God, and that's why, you know, there is a God, because if there wasn't, it would be a dictatorship, right? That you will serve this way, that will be the only way you will serve, and there will be no other way. And if you don't serve that way, then guess what? You know, you're going to die. So
that's right.
It was a very good answer. I wouldn't say it was great. It was good.
It's average.
But it was a very good answer. And I think it's something that we, you know, need to, as we walk into a church, decide, maybe if we're trying to decide a church, we need to realize that, hey, not everyone is the same. Don't just take what you've learned from attending one church and cast everybody in that light. I think there's a lot of lessons that can be learned from that.
These are authenticity.
Yeah. You know what? I think that he's feeling himself a little much, so we're gonna go ahead and cut it off here at this moment.
Just whenever I'm getting my steam rolling.
We're gonna go ahead and have Jessel fan him down a little bit, get him some water. And once again, I actually do want to take this time as we wrap up here on at this point, I've lost
80
count
seconds.
how many episodes we have, but I do want to take a chance to thank the people behind the scenes. We have John Prabhu and Jessel Prabhu helping with this amazing program. John
They're doing all the work.
I mean, they're helping. I'm doing all the heavy lifting. But I do have to pick myself up out of this chair.
Are you being authentic?
But no, we want to thank them for all their hard work and getting this set up. This beautiful scene, the beautiful scene that you see here is because of their hard work. And we want to make sure we thank them for all their hard work. John, he is the best producer in town. Jessel, I can't call him the best assistant because his sister will smack me over the head if I say that. So I will not say that. But we want to thank you. And we want to thank you for listening to Simple Answers with Dr. Z. Thank you so much. You can continue to send those questions in via email, via the anonymous form. You can see those up on your screen right here on Simple Answers with Dr. Z, a New Beginnings Assembly of God production. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Simple Answers with Dr. Z. If you have a question that you would like to have discussed by Dr. Steven Zemanek and the team, please submit it to simpleanswerswithdrz@gmail.com. As Pastor Steve likes to say, whatever you're doing today, remember this: because of Jesus, life is good today.